Here is how education set you up for failure. And here I'm not going to talk about the typical, oh, you majored in something useless, now you cannot find a job. I don't care about it, everyone knows about it. It's not worth discussing. What I do want to discuss is the patterns we learned and how the thought the world works we learned from education, what actually sets you up for failure. First, I will tell you conceptually what we learned, and then I will explain how things really are. So here is the pattern we learned from the typical education. We start in school, depends where you're at, can be 9 grades to 12 grades. So you go through all that education. Then the expectation is you go to college, you go to university to learn a specific skill, whatever it is. Can be as little as 2 years, can be as much as if you're going for master's and PhD. What can it be, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And then you go for all that schooling. So let's just say you started at 7 years old. Now, best case scenario, 21, 22, you're done. Then you can actually start doing something. Sometimes 27, 28, sometimes people keep schooling till their 30s. And this is then. They can actually start doing something, hopefully. And the expectation is we need to take all that time to learn, to prepare, and allegedly it's all supposed to be one thing we're preparing to start making money. Like, I don't know, you go for, let's not even talk about some bullshit like philosophy degree where you can become a philosophy teacher. Let's talk about something practical like computer science. You go to school for your computer science degree for 4 years, you learn it, then you prepare to actually start doing something with it. The problem is that concept is wasteful when it comes to time. It's counterproductive and it doesn't work. Because here is how everything works in reality. And the reality is the skills you must learn are over-evolving, and how you use those skills are over-evolving. So, even with computer science, for years, guess what? For those 4 years, and usually even with practical skills, school learns you something ultra outdated. And best case scenario. Worst case scenario, we will teach you some absolutely useless theoretical stuff. But even if it's practical, it's ultra outdated. And that will go even farther. Let's talk again about computer science. Let's just say you decided to go for the coding bootcamp, which is technically, shorter, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it is. Even in that situation, 4 to 8 months, a ton of things can happen in the development sphere. If you're lucky and whoever is a big boss of your coding bootcamp is actually smart, and over that period of time you're studying, they will update the curriculum. Let's just say new tools come through, they decided to, you know what, now instead of using just GitHub, now let's start using a specific AI coding tools because it speeds up the process, etc., etc. Best case scenario, if you're lucky. Often it doesn't happen. And here I'm talking about one specific skill in a vacuum. But here is how things work in reality. Let's just say I will use myself for example. Let's talk about marketing side of a house. I started as a content writer. First step. I learned it while doing the work. I also managed to find some mentors. Shout out to Kevin Meng. Hi, Kevin. And this is where I learned. I was learning while doing the job. Became pretty good at writing. Then I realized, you know what? It's just a smaller thing. It's a smaller thing. It's a first step. Actually, let me do it the following way. So I was going to that point with content writing. Then I was like, you know what? It's just one thing and it's useful, but it's ultra narrow skill, and because AI is evolving, you cannot be a writer. You cannot be just a writer. And sure as hell, you cannot be just a content writer. So you know what? Let me go into copywriting. Just from essentially went from just writing articles to writing emails, web pages, various posts on social media, etc., etc. So it was that point I went somewhere else. I learned another skill. I learned another skill. I wrote a ton of things by hand, and this is then AI became popularized. Initially, it was pretty useless, but then as it evolved, it became more and more useful. So during that period, I learned how to use AI to speed up the process. Mind you, AI was ultra useful, especially since I already knew how to write well. So I was able to see good writing right away, and I was able to see how to fix things right away. Then doing all that, I realized, you know what? Content writing, copywriting, fantastic skills, there is more to it. So let me learn actual overall marketing strategy and how everything fits together. So this is where I went from point 2, this direction. Let me look at marketing strategy, how it works conceptually, how I can not just execute on some specific things, but how I can build the entire thing. Build the entire strategy, build funnels, build the entire system. So this is when I took a next step and start learning. I mixed learning, just learning again, just creating imaginary things as a trial, while at the same time looking where I can actually use it to make money. And mind you, it was not weeks, it was months, not years. And then just one thing, marketing, just say M. If I did the same thing in school, and I did major in business in university, it was general business, focus was on marketing, had some marketing courses, how useful those were, maybe somewhat, if I would be in the corporate world, but ultra impractical. Because the stuff I learned, I'm not even talking about paying someone to teach me, just stuff I learned while doing, or on YouTube or using ChatGPT, much more useful than I learned in 4 years of schooling. It was a bit more than that. So marketing works very well, fantastic understanding. But then I was like, you know what, let me do something else. Because at the same time while I was doing that, I was freelancing. And what I found out is my presentation, how I am on camera, how I talk to people, ability to sell myself, ability to sell my services is ultra important, and it's related. But it's a not totally different thing, but it's a whole collection of information on its own. So this is when I got into sales, started learning sales. It's how to generate potential clients, which is again, it's on the edge of marketing. How to talk to them, how to talk to them first remotely, how to set them, how to communicate on the sales calls, etc., etc. And it was a whole different side of the house right here. Now I'm also moving to a different direction in addition to that, but just on those specific examples. Here I had, how many sections? I had content, copy, marketing, sales. 4 sections, arguably somewhat close but separate skills. And all that in a relatively short period of time, relatively. That considering I actually, all my timeline I could have compressed it in half, if not faster, because I know people who did that. For me, I just started earlier than some people, so I was able to, because again, right now things are evolving much faster. And I started writing content in 2018. So it's kind of, my timeline was longer. If you start right now in the same pathway, not recommended doing it the same way. Unless you will go through those stages ultra quickly, then yes. But right now, if you start that way, your time would be and should be much compressed. Well, starting from a fact how much money I was able to make with copy and content writing potentially before, it's a much tougher game right now. Because again, competition, AI, blah, blah, blah. My point, I learned as I go. I adjusted with time, and I pivoted. And I pivoted using the skills I had. Minor exception, for example, here somewhere I decided to go to see how cybersecurity will work for me. So I was doing it during my content and copy. I studied it for about a year. Again, practical stuff, all of the labs, blah, blah, blah. Interesting, good. It was, I stopped because reality is, with a ton of cybersecurity jobs, even if it's remote, at least for me, here in the US, at the time it was, I must be present physically in the US to do that job, which was a deal breaker. And right now it's even worse. Right now it's like come back to the office. So I did the right thing. So I tried it, and it was the separate section, unrelated. Some of the stuff I use because I actually managed to land cybersecurity clients of my knowledge. So it is kind of related. But the bottom line is I tied it all together, and it's the skills I can use right now. Not some theoretical stuff. Let me learn a theory of, let me major in English writing, English creative writing. And let me tell you, while someone who majored in English creative writing might potentially write specific things, like, I don't know, some scripts or something no one will pay you for. Well, again, unless it's YouTube scripts. We can, from a point of view of English writing, we might be able to have a better foundation. We don't know how to write things what sell. We just know how to write in general, like writing in a vacuum. We don't know how to write something what sells. So from this point of view, if someone decided, you know what, I want to be a writer, let me go get a writing degree. Talking about waste of time. Because I can guarantee you, I write better than them. And I can sell better than those English majors, period. So, bottom line. Education taught us. It's supposed to be a continuous straight line. It's not a straight line. You adapt, you see what sticks, what doesn't. Again, like my example of cybersecurity. Imagine I majored in cybersecurity just to realize it doesn't work for me. It's like how many years flushed down the toilet. The difference is majoring in something versus trying something for 1 year with minimal. I paid a few grand for the actual training, realizing it doesn't work for me while doing some other things with copy and content writing. So, and this is how things are supposed to work. You start, you learn as you go. If you need to get additional help, some extra training, some coaching, whatever it is, going through a bootcamp, going through some educational courses, totally fine. You do it while practicing, seeing what sticks, what doesn't. And in an ideal world, making money as you go. Moral of a story, with difference between the red straight line and the green example, the things are going between different skills. This is how you make it. This is how you make it. Because think of what AI can do. Again, I'm not like, oh, AI will change everything. It's like, it will change quite a few things, but a ton of people are behind. And right now, just on a basic level, I know for a fact, it helps me with my workflow without doing anything ultra crazy. Will school teach you that? Something tells me no. And based on what I remember from business school, considering the useless garbage I learned, I graduated in 2015, and some of the major business classes I learned the entire concept, and it was 3 or 4 of those mandatory ones to graduate, which were taught by a head of business division, and the entire class was memorizing formulas. Formula like x plus y equals z, where x is bicycle wheels, y bicycle frame, and z is the final product. We had to memorize that garbage, which even at a time, back like 2014, 2015, no one used that shit. No one used that trash. That stuff maybe from 2000 from 1960s, and even then, no. And you tell me those specific schools, and I learned, and I went to just typical normal state school. Nothing ultra fancy, not Ivy League, but not a degree mill either. Pretty good, respectable state school. And you're saying what same school right now will teach how to, where cybersecurity students, how to properly use AI? Just no, absolutely not. And most of the stuff will probably teach is just typical basic coding, possibly on outdated languages anyone barely uses, and will teach you a bunch of stuff which sounds good on paper, like, oh, what's the legality of this and that. It's not gonna help you find a job, period. So this is how you operate, like this. Learn as you go, you learn as you go, you practice, you find jobs, you see what sticks, what doesn't, get projects, you crash and burn, and in the end, believe me, you will be much farther than people with a degree. It doesn't matter how useful it seems on paper, but odds are it's going to be useless. And don't forget what ton of debt. I cannot say I got lucky because it wasn't luck. I graduated with zero debt because I did ultra good in school. And the rest, I did with my own money. I am an exception. So, moral of the story, don't buy into the, education and school is your ticket to success. It's, of course, I mean the typical disclaimer, if you want to go to medicine, blah, blah, blah. There is a narrow exception. But you must base your decisions when it comes to education and everything else, not on what seems like an okay idea. You must base it on where you want to get in life. Here, that specific area, your ideal life. Here is you. Here is your environment, whatever it is. And you must base all that stuff on this, where you want to get. And if you're not sure how to get from your starting point, point A, which is right now, to point Z, this life, book a free clarity call where we will break down where you're at, your current position, your deck of cards you have been given. Look at your ideal life down the line and see how we can go from that point A to point Z as fast and as efficient as possible. Andre out.